The Toyota Supra, the icon of Japanese performance, a name that is synonymous with big power, easy tunability, and a starring role in the biggest street racing movie franchise of all time. A name that sadly has been out of production for 17 years. But now, the Supra is back. But this time around with more than a hint of German DNA. Is that a bad thing in any way? Well, you'll just have to continue watching to find out. First, let's start with the elephant in the room, something that I'm sure many of you will have already known. For 4 generations and 24 years, the Supra was a homegrown Toyota flagship sports car. But in the interest of saving cost, Toyota has partnered with BMW with this car. And as a result, this car is based on the latest Z4. They share the same mechanicals, they're both built in the same plant in Austria, and even the sticker on the door sill says that this car is made by BMW. Even the Toyota logo at the front has a BMW part number. This car is about as Japanese as bratwurst. So what exactly is Toyota about it? Well, this styling for one. Cast your mind back to 2014 when it introduced the FT1 concept. It blew all our minds away, and this car still has much of its aggression. This curved headlight design is very reminiscent of the previous A90 Supra, and these 6 projectors stacked on top of each other look really rather cool. If you look closely, you'll even see some red striping. There's also some big air intakes up front and this nose cone which looks very Formula 1. Toyota obviously doesn't want to admit this, largely because its Formula 1 effort wasn't exactly stellar, was it? Along the side, you can clearly see some of the influences from past Toyota sports cars, such as the 2000 GT, a car which me personally, I rather like the look of. It's a very organic design with lots of curves, and you've got this long bonnet and this roofline that sweeps all the way towards the rear spoiler. I especially like the look of these rear haunches that curve so far outwards. It just looks so sexy, especially when you get a glimpse of those rear arches in the rear view mirror, which by the way is the only part of the outside that is recognizably BMW. The wheels measure 19 inches in diameter, and they feature this blade-like design for the spokes, which some people might find is a bit too much, but I personally enjoy. The rear end continues those curves with these nice 3-dimensional taillights, as well as this big rear diffuser with actual twin tailpipes. Take that, Mercedes. Down here, you've got another Formula 1 style design key over here, this light in the middle. But instead of being used for fog or rain, it's actually the reverse light. Truth be told, I really like the look of this car, except for a few small details. You see these vents over here at the front, on the bonnet and in the doors are fake. Toyota says that you can simply remove these panels over here so that you can put vents in there if you're tuning the car, but I say rubbish. I don't like the look of all this fakery around here, but other than that, I think this is a gorgeous design. Inside, it's not quite so impressive. The BMW parts on the inside are much more apparent. All the buttons are from BMW, the iDrive system is from BMW, the interior lighting is from BMW, the rear view mirror is BMW, the steering controls are BMW, and even the gear lever will be familiar to those who own a BMW. The only part that isn't BMW is the instrument cluster, which has a big center rev counter, and if you run your fingers through it, you can actually feel the ring around it, which is quite nice. It is very legible, but there's not much in the way of customization, and apparently it took so much effort to redesign the instrument cluster that they haven't bothered with the center display. The BMW content, I don't mind so much. What I do mind is that they aren't the latest BMW components. The aircon controls, the iDrive controller, they're not from the latest Z4, they're from an F33 series, which is 8 years old now. And as a result, this car just feels dated inside. And while the iDrive system is quite familiar, it does mean that this car gets one of the best infotainment systems on the market. The interface is a little bit old though, and I don't like the fact that this is pointed away from you, so you get quite a lot of reflections on the screen. You also get a wireless charging pad over here, but you don't get wireless Apple CarPlay in this car. I also don't like the fact that they seem to have not put so much thought in the design of the interior. The dashboard is just a simple straight line across, and the door cards are also very simple. And while the JBL sound system is very good, the speakers aren't quite so well integrated into the rest of the design. Take for instance the speaker at the back. It just looks like it came from Brothers. Perceived quality is also so-so. The actual build quality is very good, just like a normal BMW. But the materials aren't quite up to the standards of the rest of the class. There's just a lot of plastic in here. Lots of soft touch plastics, but plastics nevertheless. And this silver strip here isn't going to fool anyone to thinking it's metal. It just feels very plasticky. Worst of all, there's clear evidence of cost cutting here. Down here you've got a button to open the rear hatch, but on the passenger side there's just a blanking plate, and the same goes for the absent door locking buttons near the door handle, which for something that's close to 600,000 ringgit is kind of a shame. It's not all bad though. These seats look very good and they're very supportive, and in true BMW fashion, the driving position is spot on. You sit very low in the car, there's lots of adjustment, and you can get the steering wheel very close to your chest. Speaking of the steering wheel, this big airbag boss is quite ugly, but the rim is quite a bit thinner than in actual BMW, so it is much nicer to hold. I also like the fact that there is this nice carbon fiber trim over here that just lifts the ambiance a little bit. But having said that, the interior is still the weakest part of the car. The short wheelbase means that this car is only available as a two-seater, and the boot is also quite small, measuring just 290 liters, and the sill is so high you have to be the Hulk to lift heavy items into the boot. Safety-wise, this car comes with a full range of BMW's driver assistance systems, including autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, blind spot monitoring, and automatic high beam, none of which are offered on most BMWs here in Malaysia. Some food for thought, BMW Malaysia? To give you a sense of how this car sits in the marketplace, we need to talk about the price. Now this car is priced starting at 568,000 ringgit, and that's with this performance red paint. All the other colors, including a gorgeous lightning yellow, is a 5,000 ringgit option. And the most expensive paint, a matte grey, takes the figure up to 580,000 ringgit. That is important because aside from the usual Porsches, its biggest rivals, ironically, come from BMW. The BMW Z4 is priced at 479,000 ringgit, whereas the M2 competition, well, that's priced at 627,000 ringgit. That is some serious competition, but the Supra comes with a few benefits of its own. Whereas the Z4 comes with a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, the same one you'll find in a 330i, the Supra comes as standard with BMW's tried and tested B58 3-litre turbocharged straight 6. It makes 340 PS and 500 Newton meters of torque, and it's all sent to the rear wheels through BMW's ZF 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, having a straight 6 obviously gives this car a clear lineage to the previous generation Supra with its infamous 2JZ engine. But a straight 6 is also a very BMW engine, and the result of all this is that this is the one area where the Supra feels the most like a BMW to drive. But that's not such a bad thing, because this is a fantastic engine. It loves to rev, it's creamy, smooth, and it zings all the way up to 6,000 RPM like it's running on butter. It's also very, very fast. Even though it weighs more than 1.5 tons, it will get from 0 to 100 in just 4.3 seconds, and it feels every bit as fast as that because there's so much torque and it's everywhere in the rev range. And just listen to the way this thing sounds. It's just that visceral wail from the engine. And actually, because the turbochargers muffle the sound a little bit, it gives it a little bit of that 2JZ character, minus the whooshes and the obviously loud wastegate noises, of course. The transmission is not so great. It's fine in a BMW sedan, but in a sports car, it just responds a little bit too slowly, whether you're flooring the throttle or using the pedals. It's not bad in any sense, but it's not as fast as a DCT. And unfortunately, you can't get this car with a manual gearbox. I know, what a shame, right? But the gearbox doesn't get in the way on how this car is like to drive. Obviously, a lot of the componentry is shared with BMW, including the McPherson struts at the front, the multi-links at the rear, and the adaptive dampers that come as standard. But Toyota says that it was the one that decided on all the hard points, including the short wheelbase, which Toyota says makes this car feel more agile. You've also got a very wide track, and that gives this car a very 4-square stance. It's just so planted and stable, and yet so agile. So grippy, and yet, if you turn off the safety systems, you can do all sorts of power slides thanks to its limited slip differential. Toyota also says that this car is stiffer than the carbon fiber body Lexus LFA, and that it has a lower center of gravity than a Toyota 86, even though that car has a boxer engine. And you can really feel it on the road. Body control is very good, and the car just sticks to the apex, even if there's a bump on the road. Inevitably, these shared components mean that, again, the handling is rather BMW-like. The steering, for instance, doesn't have a lot of feel. You do get a sense of what the road is beneath you, but not much. However, it is direct and responsive, and you do learn to trust it over time. And when you do get to trust it, you'll be able to do stuff like this. And yet, when you just settle down, shift up a few gears and just cruise along, this car becomes quiet and comfortable. The ride, for instance, is so much better than it is on the G23 series. That car obviously having passive suspension, whereas this has adaptive dampers. There's a little bit of road noise coming through, but otherwise this is a very, very comfortable long distance cruiser. And I would happily drive this car every day if that's what I wanted. As you can gather by now, this does feel like a BMW to drive. There's no hiding from that. But an unnaturally good BMW. This is the BMW sports car you wished BMW would make. A car that you know is within them to be able to do, but they've always fallen short. Toyota has taken some ordinary BMW components and added some of its own special sauce. That special sauce that we've seen in the Lexus LC, for instance. This car has loads of panache, from the outside at least, and it's wrapped around this fantastic driving experience. While it's a shame that Toyota couldn't forge its own path to make a sports car, there's nothing to take away from this. This is a great car. And the fact that it's making this sports car in the first place should be celebrated by all enthusiasts. This car serves up quite a conundrum. It is very difficult to overlook all of the obvious BMW parts, and the same goes with the driving experience. But all you have to do is drive this car with an open mind. Drive it acknowledging and accepting BMW's role in its development, and I promise you, you will enjoy this car so much more. This is one of the rare instances where the result is greater than the sum of its parts. This is a car of immense capability and a character which may not be all of its own, but it is endearing all of the same. This is a fantastic sports car, no matter what badge is on it.